today. I'm going to do my very best to keep the screen sharing the right thing that we want to see and not weird emails that are popping into my computer. But if you notice something, feel free to give me the heads up and I'll get rid of it. One more minute here as we're getting started. For those of you that haven't met me before, I'm going to go ahead and put in the chat. I am Corey Brownfield and I'm our technical support for tonight. So if you're having a problem, if you're having a hard time hearing or seeing or things that just aren't going as expected, feel free to reach out to me. My phone number is 813-624-8196. I'm going ahead and putting that in the chat. That's my cell phone number. You can also email me at brownfieldc@missouri.edu. And I'll be on the lookout for messages coming through in case you have any difficulties. If you get logged out and you're trying to get back in, hit me up there and I will do my very best to get you back in. But again, we're also recording tonight's session so that in the event that you get logged out and you just can't get back in, maybe your internet is not having fun with the fact that we're finally getting some rain, we will be recording this and we will be able to share it with our attendees. So I think I see that it's 7 o'clock. So Chloe, you ready to take it away?
Yes, let's do it. Awesome. So thank you everyone again for joining us. Like Corey said, this is our final session of the Pixels of Production. So this is a broken down version of what you would normally think of as Pearls of Production, which is our big conference, which is actually scheduled November 8th. So be sure if you're interested, please let us know. We can send the sign up link in the chat for you, but that will be back in Columbia. So these sessions, this one actually, let's see if we'll go ahead a slide, please. Yeah, there we go. So November 8th in Columbia, and this will be an all-day event. So this is actually, I can't believe it's 2 weekends away, you guys. So all day on a Saturday. So if you're interested, please let us know. We can definitely get that linked over to you. And then again, Miss Corey went ahead and dropped her information in the chat. So that's her phone number, her email. If for some reason you do lose access, please reach out to her. She is here to help with all things technical support. So she will get you guys back in and on track. And then I go ahead and ask if you are not muted, if you will go ahead and do that. Take a look at the bottom of your screen. That will be all of the controls that you can use throughout the meeting. So on the left side, we have our audio, video, if you need to use that, our chat box, and then that should be all you need for this evening. But as always, if you have a question, I will leave that up to our presenter to determine if she wants to answer questions during her presentation or after. But always utilize that chat box throughout the entire night. So that is open for you. And yes, so like I said, if you were in Chick Chat, a lot of us here have different specialty areas that we work in. For example, we have swine production, we have some 4-H, we have livestock, we have dairy. We are all over the board. So if it's a question that maybe we don't know, somebody surely does. So even if it's not pertaining to tonight's session, feel free to ask and we will do our best to get you an answer. Thank you. And then if anybody is interested in helping with some research, we are actually recruiting some farmers for a research study. So what that entails, you do need to be 18 years or older and currently farming in the Midwest, preferably in Missouri. What that does is you will be helping us with an interview. We do give you a little something for helping us out, and it is confidential. So no worries about your information being out there. When these studies are published, they are very much all anonymous. So 1, to eliminate bias, and 2, to protect your information. We need 40 participants. So if this is something you'd be interested in doing, you can definitely scan that QR code if you are on a laptop, have your phone, or the email, we can definitely put that in the chat as well. So if you are a nerd like us, please reach out. All right, and then let's shout out our sponsors really quick. So without these folks, these sessions would not happen. So we are very, very thankful. Our diamond sponsor for this evening is Boehringer Ingelheim. So this is what I normally think of as a vet tech company, if you will. They do provide a lot of vet supplies, medication. You may see these reps coming in and out of your local vet clinic, and they are always wonderful to work with. We have a few more for us. So our pixel level sponsors, we want to say thank you to Callaway Soil and Water Conservation District. We do partner a lot with our soil and water conservation districts, so we sure appreciate them. And then, of course, FCS Financial. They are always here for us and then for you guys. If you have any type of financing questions, they are the place to go. All right, a couple more. So these are our Pearl level sponsors. So, of course, Missouri Beef Industry Council and Mo Pork Association and Missouri Farmers Care. So we appreciate all of them as well. Thank you. All right, so this is what you guys came for, our very last session of Pearls of Production virtually. This one is featuring Miss Joni Harper. She is talking to us about Heroes to Hives. So I won't spoil her too much. But what this does is it definitely helps our veterans and now women producers establish beekeeping operations. So very thankful to have her here. Let me tell you a bit more about her. So Joni is a natural resources field specialist within the University of Missouri Extension. She has her bachelor's and her master's from the University of Arkansas, majoring in crop, soil, and environmental sciences. She's been involved in several projects, including Beginning Farmers, Ranchers Program, Woodland Management, Master Gardener, Master Naturalist, beekeeping workshops, all within the focus to increase those beekeeping and honey productions in Missouri, and then the educational outreach of it. She's the co-leader for our Missouri Heroes to Hives program. Getting to know her a little bit better, she actually grew up on a farm in Rushville, Illinois. Her father is a sixth-generation farmer, and then her mother had her own craft business for over 20 years. The family grew around 6 acres of specialty flowers, which her mom actually used in all of her floral arrangements. Currently, she's living in Cole Camp with her husband, Travis, their 14-year-old daughter, Charlotte, and 10-year-old son, Gus, and a couple chickens. So if you have any questions about the whole list of what Joni can do for us in Extension and for you, please let her know.
Well, thank you for the introduction.
Absolutely.
And my chickens if they don't get killed, right?
Yes, the chickens. All right, Miss
Oh,
Joni, the floor is yours.
thank you. All right. Let me see if I can share. I think I can. If you can, you shall, right? All right. Can everybody see my presentation right now on
Yes,
there?
ma'am.
Perfect. Okay. So I'm trying to like fit a bunch of information in a little bit of framework on there, but I'm going to start out with just kind of our Heroes to Hives program that we've been doing, and then I'll go in and talk about kind of beginning beekeeping tips on there too. All right, so first we're going to go over the Heroes to Hives program. So a little history on the Heroes to Hives program. So the National Heroes to Hives was established in Michigan with Adam and Grayo in 2015. And then in 2019 at a Sayers Beginning Farmer Conference, Karen Funkenbush, who's on here on also, she's my leader for this, and myself, we met, we listened to Adam, and we begged Adam to be able to allow us to bring Heroes to Hives to Missouri. So we started all the planning in 2020, getting it kind of established, and then our pilot year was 2021, and so we've been doing this for 5 years now on there. So it's been a great program. The mission of the program is basically we want to teach beekeeping to veterans and their dependents, but also we look at the physical and mental well-being and trying to support our veterans into their getting into agricultural entrepreneurship. Our trainings are a combination. So we combine online education. So monthly, so about 9 months, you'll sign up, and every month you'll get kind of a core information topic to kind of go at your own pace on there. And that comes from National Heroes to Hives. And then in Missouri, we do hands-on field experiments. So basically, we have different working apiaries, and once a month you can go there and you can work the hives with us, and we go through um, all the maintenance that you would have to do for throughout the whole year with that. We also do a monthly Zoom for Missouri students and talk about different things that might affect beekeeping in Missouri for them on there. Basically, our goal is we just want our students to understand the importance of our pollinators, the honeybees in the US, and to protect and manage honeybees through small-scale sustainable beekeeping operations. And I kind of talked about this. This is kind of how the program gets kind of worked out. So you do the online training, you get a certificate when you complete that. It also goes into, there's a program, Nebraska sponsors Great Plains Beekeeping. You can work towards being a master beekeeper certification. And so this course also gets them to a certain level in that master beekeeping program. In Missouri, we have done a lot of partnering with to get kind of these working apiaries on, out throughout the state. So we have in Warrensburg was our kind of our flagship, our very first one. We partnered with University of Central Missouri over at their Mitchell Street Farm. That was our very first one that we did. And then we moved down to Mount Vernon to the Southwest Research Center. On there, we have one down around Poplar Bluffs that we partner with Three Rivers Community College. And then we have one established in 2024 over in St. Louis at the University of Missouri St. Louis campus over there. So our kind of our highlights that we do, I think one thing that's very helpful is to always be able to come and work with people who, especially if you're beginning or you don't even have hives yet, to come and work at an established apiary and do the hands-on training and work with other veterans or the instructors on there. So the apiary education side is a big benefit for our program. We do our monthly activities, and we try to do not only are we working through the hives, what we need to do on there, but we also include educational activities on there. We've done Tai Chi in the apiary, we've done the vendor showcase, value added products. So we've done all kinds of different things um, for the health and wellness part of things too. Online supplemental learning. So there's different sessions that we've covered. Missouri plants. I've done ones that it's like trees for bees. So what kind of trees are good to plant? So you kind of get, maybe you have a spring flowering one, and what would be good for like middle of the summer, a late fall or winter. So what can we plant to kind of help give the pollinators nectar and pollen throughout the growing season on there? We get positive outcomes. So we have about 77% have reported they improved mental health through this program, and also 40% plan to expand their beekeeping business in some way. Our apiaries, we kind of treat it, Karen and I and the rest of the Heroes to Hives team, we treat it as a little bit of an experiment on there too. So we have our traditional hives out there. These are the Langstroth hives. Is probably what you kind of noticed. These are the most popular and the traditional ones that we use here in the US. So we look at the traditional ones to set up. But then we also look at different hive designs that may help with more of adaptable beekeeping on there. So the lanes hives, or would be what we kind of consider a horizontal hive. These are stationary hives, and they don't require any heavy lifting. You just pull frames out. But you don't really kind move those around on there. So we look at those. And we also have been exploring into these Aja hives. They're traditional hives from Slovenia. They need to be in a house, but they kind of look like cabinets. So if you kind of see my cursor, maybe if it's showing on there. So that's kind of the front of the beehives where the bees are flying out. And then you go inside the house and you can open the back of the hives and you can work the bees from there. We have a lot of veterans with service-related disabilities, bad back, bad knees. So we're looking at different hive designs that are more adaptable. I kind of like to say, can we beekeep from when we're young into when we're old? So beekeeping throughout our life, so we're not struggling on there. So adaptive beekeeping is one thing that we're really looking into. Some of these are not as cheap to get into as others, and so that's why we look at these different designs and allow our veterans to work them, see if they like them before they basically come in and invest in a certain hive design and discover that's not something that they want to use. So we look at different hive designs out on our apiaries, and we also kind of look at different ways to extract honey or kind of mess around with. Some of our veterans will come to us and go, I kind of have seen these different designs. Hey, can we give it a try? And we're like, why not? Why don't we just kind of try that on there? So one of those is, oops, go back. Oop, nope, I keep on going forward. Here we go. One of this is basically you put these quart jars upside down. It's what we consider kind of a honey super. Was made by Carl Korshkin. He's up there in Columbia area. But these are the jar supers. And so you take clean jar canning jars basically. We put a little bit of beeswax on the bottom of the jars and then we invert them. We turn them upside down and the bees go up in there and they build that comb and fill it with honey. And then all you do is just twist it off and you top it off with a little bit of honey that's on there. And then you've got a pretty neat, interesting jar. I'm still saying these are experimenting. We have been successful in this, but there's definitely some tricks to the trade to make this work. Some other events on Heroes to Hives that we've done, they have had a National Heroes to Hives conference that was up in Minnesota. And then we had a virtual Heroes to Hives where the VA has sponsored that one. We've done tours of Missouri, so we've kind of tried to go to veteran-owned agricultural operations, especially if it's something that benefits towards the honeybee. So have done tours on that. That's been very good way to get the group together and kind of see different operations that are going on. We're looking at doing queen rearing workshops, and then apitherapy is another thing that we're looking at, and that kind of goes into looking at the mental and physical well-being when we look at the apitherapy. We had a team go this last May over to Slovenia to see how Slovenia uses their hives and how they have really embraced apitherapy and apitourism in there. So this is me, and you can go into the bee house, and the hives are over here in the corner, but you can breathe in the bee air, and it's supposed to be good for your lungs and helpful. So that's a different avenue that we're looking at into on there also. Some of the veteran success stories, and I've got a video coming up just a little bit on there, but veterans and beekeepers in World War I, They had some of the hospitals were looking at giving, there's some shortages of sugar and different things. And so the hospitals were looking at giving a task to disabled military, and they kind of got them into beekeeping. And so that's kind of a long history of it. But if we kind of look at that, it really does help and give them another mission, something to do, right? But on our veterans, we have all branches of the military that is represented in our Heroes to Hives program, and it's a chance for them to get together and do beekeeping activities. The program also helps foster community in helping their veterans transition from military service into agricultural entrepreneurship. We have several who is not from an agricultural background, but they have moved into the country and is looking at getting into different something into the agricultural operations. Beekeeping is one of the ones that you can get into on a smaller scale. So this is kind of, oop, I'm going to pause. But can you all hear that video if I'm start playing it on there? So here is a video that was made from one of our Heroes to Hives participants that I'm going to let you. And then if you can kind of see over the 5 years that we've been doing this, we've have over 1,500 veterans and their dependents participate in our Heroes to Hives program here in Missouri, with 77% saying that they improved their mental health. A lot of them were new to beekeeping, and a lot of them were new to extension. So about 70% of them are all new to that. Just a little under half was looking to grow the business on there, and 8% increased Missouri honey on there. And there's a little quote. But this was Kit Smith. He was one of our first Hero to Highs. He's from Navy. And we did, Karen and her team made an excellent video. So I'm going to play this. Just let me know if you can hear it.
No, we cannot hear it.
Not yet.
Okay. Anybody know how to make a video here?
There should be, oh shoot. Well, this would be one of the things that I would supposed to be helpful for.
It's okay. I thought if I embedded it, you all could like hear it, right? But apparently,
when you shared your screen, Joni, was
Uh-huh.
there a checkbox that you had to check to share your sound also?
I did not see that. Maybe that's under advanced.
Maybe.
You think that's under advanced? No, I didn't see that on there. Okay, well, what I'm going to do, and thank you for being patient with me, is maybe if I can pull the link.
Corey, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Do you want to see if you can figure out what to do to get that, and then we can come back to that video?
Yes, I'm working on that as we speak.
Okay.
Well, I can put the link in our chat too, and you can guys, and I don't know. I thought, oh, I embedded it and it's gonna work, so I apologize for that.
No, that is, I swear there is a setting for that, and I should have it, and I don't have
Oh,
it.
here, share sound. I think I might have it now after I was told to do that. All right, we're going to try that again.
I got out of the Navy.
I've got sound.
I joined the Navy
Perfect.
in 1981. I served 6 years as an electronics technician on board a Spruance-class destroyer out of San Diego. During that time, I was disabled. I got shocked with 20,000 volts. I got out of the Navy, went into business for myself. In 2020, I was retired. I was introduced to Heroes to Hives. The Heroes to Hive program is 9 months long. It takes you step by step through the process of how to work with bees, how to keep bees properly. There's a sense of camaraderie with other veterans that are doing the same thing that you are. I've got several disabilities from the military. Injured my back, I've got bad feet, the electrocution. So I have to be really careful how I do things now. Missouri Agri-Ability put me in contact with Rehab Services for the Blind. They learned that with my back injury, I needed something more adaptive. The Rehab Services for the Blind was able to grant me 6 Slovenian hives. With the Slovenian hives, I'll be able to take only one frame at a time instead of having to lift 60 to 80 pounds at a time. The Slovenian hives are going to allow me to beekeep into my 80s if God lets me walk this earth that long. So absolutely, the Slovenian hives will keep me in beekeeping longer. I have PTSD, severe PTSD. I thought the world was wrong and I was right. And I thought I was out in the middle of the ocean in a little rowboat all by myself. But then I started hearing other guys and gals talk about the same things that I was dealing with. And I realized that I'm not alone. It was a wake-up call for me. But it was refreshing, the fact that other people had the same feelings, the same thoughts, and that there is light at the end of the tunnel. With my PTSD, I had a void, and beekeeping has filled that void. And it's probably saved my life.
All right, so I get pretty emotional when I watch that. But it is one of the big driving forces and why I try to get Heroes to Hives here in Missouri and why we continue that. And I couldn't do it without wonderful team. John Fuller, Karen Funkenbush, she was the lead of this, Travis Harper, um, Eli Isley. So you kind of see everybody. It took a big team to kind of put this together. We're all different yard bosses in the different areas that are kind of go together on there. All right. I got myself all switched up and now I'm like, oh, here we go. So that was our team. This is lots of funding sources that come from it. Our big funder is the grants that through Agri-Ability and NIFA on there that has helped. We also, I saw that FCS Financial sponsors this, and FCS Financial has been a big support of Heroes to Hives. They donated lots and lots of hives. They all got together, the region, and like built beehives and donated it to the program. So then we can not only use it in our working apiaries, but we can also let some of our veterans take some of those hives too. So that's kind of a little, in a nutshell, our Heroes to Hives program. Here's the contact information. So we do have a devoted email address that you can send that to, and we monitor and answer. Like us on Facebook, Heroes to Hives Mo on there. We have the website, and then the National Heroes to Hives is conducted through Missouri Farm and or Food and Farming Systems, or MIFS, on there. All right, I'm going to just pause real quick and see if there's any questions that on the program. And if I don't hear any, I'll get started in beekeeping.
I've got a question.
Yes.
So is Heroes to Hive something that people can reach out to, like, hey, I'd really like to be part of this program. Where do I get started? Or is there funding for the people that are interested in getting started to help them get off the ground?
So Heroes to Hives is more of educational side. So we don't have funding to supply to help get you supplied on there, but we do talk about resources that are available through like the USDA and different things that you could help. But we're more of a educational group than we are a funding group.
Got to
So,
learn how to do it. Excellent. Thank you.
yeah. All right. I'm going to get started. Okay. So I'm going to kind of just a little teaser because it's really, I don't have enough time to go through all the things about beekeeping on there. So we're just going to talk about a little bit about getting started into beekeeping, and we're just kind of go over some of what considerations you need when you're looking at getting into beekeeping. First and foremost, yes, yes, and yes, honeybees are considered livestock. So that is a huge advantage. When you're looking at USDA programs, that honeybees are considered livestock with the USDA programs and through the IRS on there. So that does open up some of the livestock availability, resources, cost share, and stuff when you're looking at that. But honeybees are considered livestock, and I jokingly say if you have 1 or 2 hives, you probably have more livestock than the big cattle guys in your county, because every hive can get to be about 60,000 bees on there. So bees are important. I know we're getting more and more promotion of this, which I think is great, but bees play an important role in pollination for our crops and our plants to be fertilized on there. It's mutually beneficial. The bees basically need the flowers for the nectar and the pollen on there, and it's good for our environment. So pollinating by bees boosts your crop yields, gives you biodiversity, highlights any of the important economics that are there too. When we think about, or when we always talk about for beginners, when we're wanting to get into that, there's 3 things you need to be a beekeeper. You need to want to keep bees. So there's a desire that needs to be there. You need to not be allergic to bee stings. So it's not great if we do recommend you always carrying an EpiPen with you on there, and you need to have a healthy respect for those bees. Well, you'll see a lot of YouTube and different things, social media out there about they're gentle bees. They don't want to sting me. Well, they probably don't want to sting you, but they will. And you just got to know that on there. If you have those 3 things, the rest you just need is a little bit of knowledge and some money to get started on there. So some basically requirements for the beekeeping, or the equipments that you need on there. So there's some essential beekeeping equipment that you're going to need. You're going to need to have the beehive. Most popular, like I said, was the Langstroth hive, but there's some other ones out there too. The supers are basically where the bees are going to be building up the honey, so you can kind of extract that. Foundation, which is getting the bees started and what they're building that honeycomb on, or the brood comb onto. Feeders, smokers, your hive tools, and then your personal protective equipment, PPE, veils and gloves. If you really that's kind of our basic that you're looking at. So the cost can vary. It's kind of like when we get started in everything, it depends on if you want the Cadillac version or if you want to go like low budget basement bargain deals on there. But you're probably looking about close to $400 on one hive on the initial investment. Some figures you kind of look at. So if you kind of look at the extension beekeeping planning budget on there, because it talks about some other essentials on there, it can range between $400 to $800 a hive to get started. Because you need to have all that other equipment. Now that equipment can be used if you have 1 hive or 2 hives or 3 hives, right? On some of that. So we always suggest you start with 2 hives. Don't start with 1. So if you're looking at going in with 2 hives, you're probably looking at about almost $700 on there to get started. You need to actually get bees to put in that. Sometimes you can get freebies if you want to get a swarm. A lot of times, if we're beginners, we're going to be ordering the bees and buying bees can range between $100 to $165. Kind of depends on what you want on there. All in all, I will say that we have put together Ryan Milholland put together a beekeeping budget plan. It's kind of like you've probably seen a lot of the budget plans for livestock or grain markets, but there is one here that's also for beekeeping. They have an initial investment, and then they kind of show you where 10 hives, 30 hives, and kind of extrapolate out from there on there. Breaking down that basic kind of equipment, you have to have a place to kind of put your bees on there, right? So when we talk about that, when we talk about the Langstroth hive, this is kind of a Langstroth hive here. It has been adopted because you can easily do the proper bee space. So bees need a good space to work in. If you get too much, then they kind of go all wonky and build up the comb, or too close together and they're just not going to have the brood pattern that they might like to have. And then the frames can normally be easily removed so you can inspect them on there. So here is kind of a basic box. If you're going to get one, you have a brood box. You have a board. We put these on cinder blocks, and then you kind of have a top hive on there that kind of does that. When we're looking at foundations, so your frames will come when you buy those. Normally, you can put frames together, but you're going to need a foundation. And the reason we do a foundation is because it just gives a nice format for the bees to build up their wax and either put the honey in or lay their eggs in and have their brood in on there. It makes it pretty nice and neat frames on there. Bees can build comb, and they can get pretty wonky at times on there, and you don't want to destroy comb when you're having to look through everything. So giving them a nice neat foundation to kind of build off of that is very helpful. Other equipment, a smoker. So we always say we use smokers on here, kind of helps you calm the bees down. And then a hive tool, there's different varieties of hive tool that you can use, but you are going to need a tool to basically crack open the hive, pull the frames out, and kind of work and inspect it. So those are kind of two essential tools that we really use a lot on there. And then also you're gonna want to at least have a veil that's protecting your face on there. I just saw an article, and I haven't looked too much into it, but it says that honeybees can recognize faces, and I believe it because we have one of the hives that all the other hives, they were perfectly fine with me, but there's one hive that those ladies did not like me. Every time I got around or even close to it, they would come after me on there. So there's at least a veil on there. They also have bee jackets, and they have whole bee suits that you can protect yourself with on there too. These gloves are normally leather gloves that kind of go up to protect your hands. Those are what we normally do, like beginners probably use these a little bit more. Once you start getting more comfortable working the bees on there, I switch to nitrile gloves. They're easier. You can feel a little bit more on how to pick the frames up, and you're not crushing bees. Those leather gloves are a little bit more clunkier. And also the nitrile gloves, if you're going to different hives and stuff, you can take them off, throw them away, put new ones on, and you're not spreading diseases too. Equipment. So when we're looking at, most of the time when we're establishing a colony, especially a package, new ones, we're going to want to feed them. or you're going to want to feed them to get ready for winter time. Especially if you took their honey stores away so you can sell it or eat it on there. So you're probably looking at you want a feeder. They have these front feeders that kind of you put a quart jar of sugar water in there and they feed that way. Or there's even feeders that go in, you slide into the hive like a frame on there too. So look at feeders is normally one. You can look at, there's some big ones. There's Man Lake, Dedant, and some other of the beekeeping supply companies. They have kits available that you can get, and they can range from $250 to $400 for the beginning beekeeping kit, which comes with a hive and a smoker and maybe an educational book and some veils on there. When we look at the different hive types and we're thinking about the site selection, there's different hive designs that I talked about when I talked about Heroes to Hives. These link strip hives are the most common or most popular in the US, is just what we kind of use. I think the big reason on this one is you can get a lot of honey production from these Langstroth hives. The downside of these hives is that one of these boxes, well, if you kind of look on here, the supers that are top, when you're trying to pull those off, they can get to be 80 pounds. Honey can be pretty heavy on there. So trying to lift that, especially if I'm a pretty tall woman, but there's not everybody's as tall as me. So sometimes we're building these hives up and we're putting 80 pounds where it might be right at your shoulders and trying to lift that, or you're trying to lift it from the bottom too, it can give a bad back. It could be pretty hard to handle on there. And so that's why we look at the lanes hives or those horizontal hives and looking at the Aja hives too. There are price points to that because the Langstroth hive is most popular, is probably the cheapest hive to get into, and then your Aja or your lanes hives on there. When we're looking at a spot to put it, this is why beekeeping is a good, I guess, the entry into agriculture on there. You don't have to have a lot of space to put a hive in on there. Some successful features when we're looking at putting up our hives on there. Oh, sorry. You guys hear my dog? Shh, on there. Successful when we're looking at that. What bees need is they need nectar, they need pollen, and they need water on there. And so we are looking for a place that you're going to have a lot of pollinating flowers out there. It does need to have a water source. You need to probably have an area that's somewhat protected from the wind. It's always good. You don't want to have it in full shade. You want your hives to be somewhere where you're going to get the morning sun as quickly as possible. And bees are insects, so if it's close to a field that's going to be sprayed by an insecticide, it's not going to be good for them. So if you can pick a spot that's a low pesticide exposure risk, that's good. Bees can you can beekeep anywhere. You can beekeep in the urban areas too. They have hives on top of, in Paris at the Opera House, and they have beehives everywhere if you want to look into that. One thing I will point out in the urban areas is you just got to see what the city rules are about having bees on there, and a way to kind of manipulate their flight path is if you can put up a tall fence or something that's pretty tall above your head, you put your hive up close to it. When the bees come up, they have to fly up over that object, so they're not getting into people's flight path. Or people's path. Their flight path is up over their head, and that's a way to kind of get them up over people if you're in an urban area. I have noticed that people have a love love-hate relationship when it comes to bees. They love them. I love them. But some people don't want to be stung, and anything that they see that they think might sting them, they don't want around. So there's stuff to be cautious about that too. So you can keep bees on there, and some people they just want to keep bees for the pollinating. They just like the idea that they're having bees and they're taking good care of them. A lot of people, though, some other people want to be making surplus honey so we can eat the honey or we can sell the honey. So we're going to have to make sure that there's plenty of nectar and pollen available um, during the growing season through on there. We need to make sure we have clean, fresh water available for them. Protect them from the north winds. We have had hives, especially when it's high winds and stuff, if they're not get topped over by the winds on there. And then also we need to protect them from the north winds during the winter time because they're not going out normally and foraging because there's not a lot of stuff out there to be foraging on there. And bees are so fascinating. They can keep their hive at a constant temperature. They'll cool it down in the summer and they'll keep it warm in the winter on there. And then they're using their energy to kind of keep that warmth going on. And so when you get that northern wind and it gets really cold out there, they're just using more energy on there. Sun, make sure that your hive is getting a sun in the morning, so it's going to get hit with there so they can go out and they can clean their hive out and they can go and collect nectar and pollen when available. I've done a talk and we've really looked at this on the accessibility to the beekeeper. So we can stick a hive someplace, but you got to remember that you're going to have to go and you're going to have to check the hive. And then if you want to extract the honey, it could be a 50 to 80 pounds, just one of those boxes. And so when you're extracting that, you don't want to be schlepping that all over the place. So try to make it somewhat easy accessibility for you too on there. Beehives, people talk about cattle theft and stuff, and honeybees are livestock. So there are people will come and steal your hives on there too. So you need to think about that, or they'll tip the hives over. And honeybees can be with cattle. You can raise cattle, but you want to protect your hives from the cattle because what we have discovered is that they come and they like to scratch on those hives and then kind of knock them over. If anybody's in the area where you might have black bears will tip those hives over too. So when we're thinking about, I might want to be a beekeeper and I'm got a good location, I think, when I look at, also think about where we're going to get the bees. So there's different avenues that you can go. You can get a established hive from somebody. That's going to be pretty expensive. You can also purchase what we call nukes, which are 5 frames of bees. It has the queen who's already laying her eggs in there. It's got a bunch of worker bees in there. It's got honey and pollen, and it's kind of like a little MIDI starter hive. And you can put that into a bigger hive, and that normally takes off a little bit quicker. The cheaper option from that would be getting a package. It's normally 3 pounds of bees. You get worker bees, and then you get a queen, and it just comes into like a little cage. You get a mated queen and worker bees, and you just kind of dump that in the hive so that they have to take time to kind of start building up those frames and laying eggs in the brood. Or you can catch freebies and you can get this collect swarms from out in nature. We like freebies, but sometimes the getting swarms, especially if you're just getting started, can be kind of intimidating. But you can definitely get on a list through your fire department, or you can go on and be a part of Missouri beekeeping association or your local beekeeping chapter, and they kind of have a swarm catcher collector list that you can go and get freebies, collect the bees for you on there too. I can't undersell, I can't express how important it is to make sure you have a good amount of forage for your bees. So plants like your sweet clover, dandelions, goldenrod, alfalfa, all that's really good nectar and pollen nutrition for the bees. We need that. And it's a big part of keeping a healthy colony is to make sure that they have good pollination and to go and harvest. So when we're thinking about getting and establishing bees, and I talked a little bit about the equipment you need and the forage type that you might need and how you're going to get your bees, but it's also important to understand their behavior and their structure. So honeybees are pretty fascinating. There's 3 types of bees in that hive. There's the queen bee. She rules the roost. She can live up to be 5 years old. Sometimes she can lay 1,000 eggs a day. She does one mating flight, so she flies and she might mate with 20 drones, which are the male bees, and then that's it. Then she's just laying eggs constantly. Um, the kind of queen that you have, like her genetics, dictates how that hive is going to be. So if you get a hive that we call spicy, they're could be very aggressive. You can't hardly work with them. That's all comes down to the queen. If you have a really gentle hive, that comes down to the queen. So sometimes we'll tell you, if you just can't get into that hive or something's not going on, you'll go in and you can pinch that queen or kill that queen off, reintroduce a new queen, you're reintroducing new genetics, and eventually that'll calm down and or make that hive a little, improve that hive. Worker bees are all female bees. They're just not laying, they're sterile female bees, and they do everything in that hive. And then drones are males bees. They do not sting. Only females have a stinger, so males don't sting because they don't have a stinger. And all they do is there to mate with the queen, and that's pretty much it. In the wintertime, they kick the drones out because they're a drain on their resources, and then they just die outside during when the winter comes on there. They're chunky boys, so drones are pretty big. And the fascinating thing about drones are where the worker bees are female. They have the queen genetics, and they also have the father genetics, the drone genetics, but drones only have the queen genetics. They do not have a father on there. Worker bees, from the very moment they hatch out, basically they start working. They have all their age tasks on there. They start cleaning, they start nursing the queen or the other bees. They do housekeeping. They go out and forage in the colonies. They do everything. Their life cycle during like the spring and summer, those kind of bees are about 4 to 5 weeks, 6 weeks, something like that. They don't live very long. But then the queen will, with the changing of it, they'll go, oh, it's going to be winter pretty soon. She'll start having winter bees, and those bees will live to be like 4 months old, 3 to 4 months, something like that. The queen's the only one who lays the eggs. She really controls the hive. So when you're basically working your hive or looking at it, you do not want to kill the queen. You want to make sure she's there, she's producing, she's doing what she does, because if the queen gets damaged, killed, she decides she doesn't like it and flies away, because she can do that sometimes, then you got to reset everything. Bees communicate through a waggle dance. So bees will they'll go foraging, and if they find a really good place for food location, they'll go back to the hive and they'll dance in a different directions, indicating exactly where that is. The rest of the hive can go and forage in that area. some other bee forage when we're kind of looking at that too. Here's some common and valuable areas when you're looking at that, because you want to make sure you have enough pollen and nectar for them. So sweet clover, trees are very good on there, dandelions, soybeans, all kinds of different ones on the pollinating on there. Having a good mix of those, some of them could be very early spring, that's important. Then we have spring, summer, and then something more of the fall. A lot of our asters in the aster family, those flowers are about what they're foraging come fall time on there too. Some of the honey production and hive management, when we're looking at that, most of us probably are in it because we want a little bit of honey or being able to sell that too on there. So when we're looking at that, we need to make sure we're doing the proper hive management techniques out there. Make sure you're maintaining a good amount of space for the egg and honey storage for that queen to be going into. We're feeding the bees when necessary. We don't generally feed the bees when they are filling up the honey supers because we don't want sugar water as our honey source, right? So a lot of times we might feed the bees sugar water at the very beginning of spring, just so when they're building up on the repopulating and getting stronger, and then we'll start feeding them again depending on if they need it after we've pulled the honey supers on there too. Pest control, I would say about 30, 40 years ago, a lot of the guys never had to worry about it. They'd just go back to their hives, pull it, and everything was great. But we have some pretty gnarly pests out there, so we do need to monitor that and make sure that we are controlling the pest when possible. If we have a bad queen or something on there, we definitely need to make sure we're watching, and if we need to requeen, that's what we need to do. Probably one of the big things, especially when we get started, and which can be pretty devastating, is if our hive swarms on us, which basically means that they leave the home that we gave them, and we no longer have bees in that hive anymore. So kind of monitoring that and understanding how the techniques that you need to do to try to prevent. You can't not, sometimes sometimes they'll swarm on you, but there are ways that we can maintain the space, make sure they're not getting too bound up. If they don't have enough space to keep on growing and storing up their hot or their honey and everything, they'll swarm on you. So just make sure we're watching that. Honey extracting process. So normally we're just putting what we call supers on top of the brood boxes on there. And then we'll uncap the cells. We put it in kind of an extractor that kind of slings the honey out of the frame. And we just run it through a filter and then you just bottle it. It's raw honey. No, we don't add anything to it. No heating up on there. And Karen just told me that people with alpha gal are becoming beekeepers because it's if you pure raw honey, no problem if you have alpha gal. Come to find out, and there's no trait, and you wouldn't have a trace with it of other things that might be in there that could cause an allergy. There's so many products that you can get from the hive. Honey is one big one, but also you can produce comb honey. You can use the beeswax for a lot of different products. You can collect pollen. You can do royal jelly, which is basically what they feed the queens on there. It tastes terrible, but people will like it. Royal jelly can also be put in cosmetics on there. Propolis is becoming more popular, which is basically propolis is like the bee glue. They use resin from trees and stuff, and they glue everything down, but it's antifungal, antibacterial. So is honey on there. It's rich in a bunch of other nutrients on there, and people like to use propolis for sore throats and different treatments on there. You can make mead, which is honey wine. One of the oldest wines ever made is basically mead, and you can do a lot of other value-added ventures from beekeeping. A secret to honey production, the bees know what they're doing. They've been doing this for a long time. You basically just need to get out of their way and let them do it and help them and keep them healthy. So there's several disease and pests out there that can become a problem. Sometimes this is a sanitation thing. Sometimes it's just there and you just need to make sure, like anything on livestock, right? We're not bringing in a disease through equipment or our tools that we're using on there, and we're watching and we're treating that colony if do they do get this so it doesn't spread to other colonies that we might have. American and European foul brood, the chalk brood Nosema. Nosema is like bee diarrhea. You know it if you have it on there. Common hive pest, varroa mites, are probably the biggest reason why we had, like, my father was a beekeeper back in the uh, 80s, 70s, something like that. They didn't have much of a problem with this, but varroa mites, you need to check for that. The picture that I have up there with the bee, and you kind of see that little tick mite that's on it, that's what it is. That can devastate a colony pretty quick if we're not on it and watch it and treat it on there. Small hive beetle is another one, and wax moths. Wax moths normally come into maybe a weaker colony and kind of cause issues with that too. We've had a lot of people interested in several years back when you heard about the colony collapse disorder. It's a serious problem. It's really devastated the bee population worldwide on there, and it's still kind of unclear as to why that's kind of happened on there. But when we look at that, we definitely want to treat them like our livestock. So if they're sick or if they have a pest, we basically need to treat them. There's some medication, also using integrated pest management practices to try to prevent any of the diseases, and regular hive inspection is key. So some of my conclusions, am I like taking up more? I'm going over, I'm sorry. On there. I'm almost done, I promise. So benefits for a small farm. So when we're looking at that, beekeeping is a way that you can really do diversification. It helps you diversify your farm income. It's normally, even if it costs $1,200 for 2 hives on there, within 2 years, selling the honey and stuff, you can normally get that paid back. But it does create another income stream if you want to. It doesn't take a huge financial, like buying a bunch of cattle at the prices that are going on there, or a big commitment on purchasing more land. So it's a way to diverse your income on there. And there's a lot of pollination benefits out there. You can even make that a part of a job. There's a lot of vegetable producers or orchards and stuff that need bees to help pollinate. So you can even go around and move your hives to help pollinate on there too. Then very nice thing is there's a flexibility and a scalability. So starting out with 2 hives, learning how to keep bees, and you can slowly, gradually increase those. And you can, if you have 2 healthy hives and they get to be really full, you can split those hives and get 2 more hives, and then you have 4. You've just doubled your operation on there. So there's techniques that you can keep it small, but you can also slowly scale that up too. Especially if you have limited space. They're not making any more land, and land seems to be kind of expensive, but beekeeping is one that we can do on a small farm. There's benefits. There's mental health benefits when it comes to beekeeping. If you're not afraid of them, You become pretty attached. I really enjoy that, just watching them. You can go and you can listen to them, you can watch them, and you can get a connection to nature and to agriculture when you kind of take care of your bees on there. There's a lot of different materials out there. These are just a few suggestions. So there's a lot of educational books. One, The Hive and the Honeybee, is really good to provide kind of a foundational education knowledge for your beekeeping to help enhance your skills. There's magazines out there. So Bee Culture and American Bee Journal kind of gives you a lot of insight in the trends in beekeeping. Instructional videos, there's a lot out there. I will say, look at the extension or ones that are from an institution that's doing research on there. Keith Delaplane, he's from University of Georgia. He's been doing a lot of research on bees, honeybees, and he does a lot of good demonstrations for beekeepings on there. And then your beekeeping association, Missouri Beekeeping Association, has a good does a lot of educational conferences and stuff, but then they also have your local chapters, and it's good for mentorship or even like getting a community of beekeepers together. If you're interested in becoming a beekeeper, maybe don't get bees the first year you get into it. Find another beekeeper, shadow them, work with them to learn how to do it, and then kind of get into that. So kind of a little bit slower on there. There's funding sources out there through your USDA programs. Most of these funding sources are targeted towards creating a pollinator-friendly habitat. But there are the farm and ranch loans through the FSA on there. And because honeybees are considered livestock, they kind of fit into that, the loan. And there's also youth loans out there also. And then Missouri Department of Conservation, they also have a cost share out there to help establish wildlife habitat, and pollinator plots are one of those. So there's money for that also. That's kind of a first come, first served serve. So if you have to contact your private lands person through Missouri Department of Conservation. Oops. Okay, I'm done. I'm sorry I took long, but I just put in honey has different things. And so if you want to use honey for cooking, because the holidays are coming up, I thought maybe I'd put this up for my question slide.
That's perfect. We were just talking about baking at the beginning of this, but Joni, thank you so much for sharing all of your information from heroes to hives to what we need to get started with bees. But I will go ahead and open up the floor. Does anybody have any burning, stinging questions that they would like to ask while we have Miss Joni here?
I like what you did there, Chloe. Nice work.
Say, I try. I try. Say, I will go ahead and start it if nobody is just jumping. Do we have any type of like livestock risk protection insurance for bees themselves? I know we talked about funding sources, but I wonder about insurance as well.
There are. There is, I believe it is through the FSA office puts it on there. ELAP is what it's called, and there is basically you can do risk just like you would do for your cattle, you can do for honeybees for your colonies.
And participants, you are more than welcome to unmute, ask questions. Feel free to utilize the chat function if you've got your hands full. But we will keep it open for a little bit longer. And then also in the chat,
we also joke a little bit about, you go and you ask one bee, you have a question and you got 5 beekeepers, you're going to get about 10 different answers there. So on the Here's the Hive stuff and through Extension, we do try to do research-based education. And so we do try to do the research-based information on there, but there's a wide range of keeping bees, and people got a lot of opinions about it.
Joni, you mentioned when you get bees to do 2 hives and not 1. What's the benefit of 2?
Yeah, so we do suggest do 2. There's a pretty, and that's something I didn't talk about, there's a pretty high risk of your colony not overwintering. And so you're hedging your bets. And so sometimes if you have two hives, you have a hive that might be a little bit weaker than the other hive. You can take some of the brood from the strong hive and move it over to your weaker hive and kind of help them build up on there.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yes. And it doesn't cost that much more to have just another hive on there, but it can get pretty depressing if you just have one hive and it doesn't overwinter. It's a 50-50 shot sometimes around here, depending on what we have on there. And so we always suggest starting out with 2.
Gotcha.
Perfect. And then for those still sticking around, if you will please help us by filling out this survey. So it looks like Corey has already dropped that link in the chat. Tell us all your thoughts. If there's something that you want to hear next time, of course, we're done with pixels for the year, but we will start planning more soon. If you have a burning topic like the cattle market, go ahead and drop that in that evaluation and tell us more about what you want to know. So we're always happy to help, happy to have new ideas. And if you have any more questions, that's a great place to put those too. And then I will also put in the chat the link to our in-person session. So again, that is November 8th, all day in Columbia. So it's not too late to join us. But if no one else has any questions, say again, oh, good point. Say we also have the email for Megan in the chat as well. So if you are interested in being a farmer, that's going to help us with the research study. This one is super easy. Again, 45 to 60-minute interview. Your information will stay confidential, and we are needing 40 participants. So if you're interested in that, QR code or her email, great place to start. And then one more plug, November 8th is our in-person big conference called Pearls of Production. So tonight was Pixels, but this one will be the full hands-on training. It will be a great event if you're able to make it up to Columbia. And again, that is the last link that was posted in the chat. All right, my friends, one last request from us, the team. Please keep in touch with us. We do have a Facebook page. So we are very active on the Facebook page. You can find us on the Extension website. And then, of course, our emails. So again, Corey's email was in the chat. If you have a question about a specific topic, again, leave it in our evaluation, send it to Corey, and she can get that to the right person. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Chloe. I just wanted to add one more thing. We will send out all the links. We will send out the survey link, and we'll send out the research survey link as well as the sign up for Pearls of Production in a follow-up email based on tonight. So you should be getting an email from us shortly. You can then just hit reply if you have questions that you want to get back to us. And so I want to thank Chloe for being our fabulous MC, and I want to thank Joni for being our fabulous Heroes to Hives expert tonight. I learned a ton about beekeeping, and I'm very excited. I'm hoping that some of my friends that were on here are going to consider doing some bee work in the future.
Well, I appreciate it. It's the first time I got to talk to your group, so thank you for having me.
We were so glad to have you.
Thank you, Joni. Say one last call for questions. Otherwise, just want to say thank you so much, everybody, and y'all have a good night.
All right. Thanks very much. I'm going to close it down. Have a good night, guys.
Thanks, ladies. See you.